we are going to be reading a story, and then we are going to respond on your active bookmark that I've already handed out to you, okay? If you see it, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different places where we are going to stop and respond to what we are reading. Okay, you should have your sentence starters already out on your desk. So if you have those, can you hold them up for me, please? Okay, those are the sentence starters that we are going to use to respond to what we are listening to when we are hearing our story. So go ahead and set them back down on your desk. Okay, let's review what they say real quick before we get started on our book today. When I pause for you to respond, you are going to either write an I wonder, an I think, an I feel, this reminds me of, I predict, I like or I dislike, or this is just like, okay, and then you're going to fill in the blanks. On your bookmark, Austin, buddy, I'm going to borrow yours real quick. On your bookmark, it has a little space for the page number. I'll tell you what page number we stop on, so don't worry about doing that on your own. Now remember, I told you the boxes are pretty small, so we're going to be practicing our small handwriting today. So it needs to be small and neat.
Yep.
Okay? So every time that I stop, we're going to respond, and I'll let you know as we go on. Okay? Questions about what we're doing today? So the story that we are going to read is called Bad Day at Riverbend. This is one of my all-time favorite picture books. Okay? And I think you guys are really, really going to like it when we're done too. Mason. Don't give it away. Okay? So it's called A Bad Day at Riverbend. It's one of my very favorite books. So just looking at the cover and just knowing the title, Bad Day at Riverbend, I want you to start with your first response, and I want you to start with the one that says, I predict. I want you to make a prediction of what you think our story is going to be about today. Okay, so in that first box, you're going to write, I predict, and then you're just going to make a prediction. Remember, when we make predictions, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's just our guess. What do you think is going to happen in our story? Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of time to write that down. For the page number, guys, excellent question, Jade. We're just going to write the cover because we're just at the cover. Okay? So you can, it's not going to fit on that little line, so just write cover. Just spell the best that you can, because I know what the first one is. Yep, that's okay. Don't worry about it. So I predict, and then I want you to just make a prediction just by what you see on the cover of our story, and just by knowing that the title is called A Bad Day at Riverbend. Write down what you predict is going to happen. Yep. The book is called Bad Day at Riverbend. Alright, second graders, and once you have your prediction down, I want you to talk to the elbow partner, the person sitting next to you. Share your predictions. What do you think is going to happen in our story? Just make a guess. Just tell me. Share their predictions with the class before we get started? Jade. There's going to be a bad day in the book. All right. Excellent prediction. Does anybody else want to share? Let's do 2 more shares for predictions. Jackson.
He's going to have a bad day, then it's going to end really good.
He's going to have a bad day and then it's going to end really good? Okay. 1 more prediction. Paige. Sorry, can you say it a little bit louder? Someone's going to have a bad day. All right. Let's get started. Okay, so right now, while we're reading, let's practice our good, respectful manners that we have. So our pencils are down until I tell you that we're going to respond again. Show me that you're listening with your eyes and your body. Here we go. Riverbend was a quiet little town. Just a couple dozen buildings alongside a dusty road that led nowhere. Though the stagecoach occasionally rolled through town, it never stopped because no one ever came to Riverbend and no one ever left. It was a kind of place where one day was just like all the rest. But one morning, Sheriff Ned Hardy stood in front of the Riverbend jail and saw something he'd never seen before. A brilliant light in the western sky. It lasted a few minutes, then faded away. Sheriff Hardy went into the jailhouse. He was sitting quietly at his desk, wondering what the strange light meant, when a loud pounding rattled the jailhouse door. The sheriff opened it and saw Owen Buck, the blacksmith's boy, breathing so hard he could barely speak. In between gasps, Ned Hardy heard the words stagecoach and something awful. The sheriff followed Owen outside. The coach had never stopped in Riverbend before, but now it stood motionless at the end of the street. The crowd gathered around it, but they held back, as if they were afraid to get too close. It was easy to see why. The horses were covered with great stripes of some kind of shiny, greasy slime. "What is it, Sheriff?" someone asked as Ned Hardy stepped up to the coach. He didn't know. It was the strangest thing he'd ever seen. The strangest thing anyone had ever seen. All right, second grade, this is where we're going to make our second response. Okay? For this one, you get to choose which sentence starter you want to start with. Okay? The page number is page 8. So I'll give you a few minutes. You can choose which sentence starter you want to start with. Go ahead and make a response. What is going on in Riverbend? Once you have your response done, second grade, go ahead and share it with your elbow partner. Alright, 3, 2, 1, 0. Here we go, we're going to read on. The horses were nervous and breathing hard. They looked terrible. Their smooth, light coats scarred with the strange stuff that hung from them in loopy ropes and stuck out like stiff wire. The sheriff grabbed a piece with both hands. It was slippery. He gave it a pull, and the horse jerked away and whimpered in pain. Whatever it was stuck to them as sure as their flesh. "Where's the coachman?" Sheriff Hardy asked. "Gone," someone answered. The coach came into town without him. So we tried to pull some of it off, but it stuck to them. He said as sure it was their flesh, that's like your skin. I was whimpering and pain, you're right. Ned Hardy wasn't sure what to do. He scratched his head. Well, he finally said, guess I'll go look for him. The sheriff rode out of town, following the wagon's trail west. Before long, he stopped. The ground was covered with the same marks that were on the horses. Whatever happened must have happened here. He didn't see any sign of the driver, but he heard a muffled sound. There's a new color. Ned Hardy got off his horse and discovered the coachman sitting on the ground behind a rock. The poor man looked awful. He was covered with the greasy slime. Thick stripes of the stuff ran right across his eyes and mouth. He couldn't see or speak except to mumble. The sheriff helped the coachman up and led him to the horse. As they rode together back to Riverbend, Ned Hardy heard the sound of thundering hoofbeats. He rode to the top of the ridge and looked down on the charging herd of cattle. Many marked the same awful slime that had covered his poor saddlemate. When he turned his horse back toward town, he saw the same bright light he'd seen in the sky that morning. It was just beyond the horizon, right over Riverbend. It didn't last long. Here we go. As he approached Riverbend, it was clear to Ned Hardy, even from a distance, that something terrible had happened. Riding into town, he could barely bring himself to look at the buildings, now covered with the hideous marks and stripes. The sheriff got out of the saddle. The town looked deserted, but when he passed the hotel, someone called out, "Sheriff!" Ned Hardy helped the coach driver down and led him to the hotel. We are going to make our third response now. So I pick out a sentence starter. It's okay if you want to use the same starter, but go ahead and write on your bookmark what your next response is. Oh, I'm so sorry. It is page number 15. I'll walk around with the pictures. I'm going to make your next response. I wonder, I think, I feel. This reminds me of, I predict, I like or I don't like, or it's just like. And once you're done with this response, just like always, go ahead and share it with your partner. Alright, here we go. We're going to move on. Next page. The townspeople and some cowboys were gathered inside. A few were covered with the greasy slime. They all told the same story. Without warning, the sky overhead had filled with a brilliant light, a light that froze everything it touched. Herds of cattle, even birds in the sky. And it was blinding. Like stepping out of a privy and looking straight into the sun at high noon, one of the cowboys said. Couldn't see a darn thing. When the light passed, they were covered with the greasy marks.